So that ends question time. Mrs Diane Dodds has given notice of an urgent oral question to the Minister for Health. I would like to remind members, if they wish to ask a supplementary question, they should rise continually in their places. The member who tabled the question will be called automatically to ask a supplementary. So, Clerk, please read the question.
To ask the Minister of Health to outline the measures he will take following the publication of the Infected Blood Inquiry report on Monday, 20th May 2024.
With your indulgence, this could be initially a substantial answer in regards to the member's question, because I had hoped to bring a fuller statement to the Assembly in regards to the follow-up of the announcement that has been made in regards to compensation just a few hours ago. But supporting victims of contaminated blood has always been one of my topmost priorities since first becoming Health Minister in 2020. And having met on many occasions with those from the community, I am aware of the life-changing impacts and financial hardship that people have endured as a result of receiving a devastating diagnosis following treatment with NHS contaminated blood. The anguish and the trauma that they have endured over many decades is inconceivable. The health service use of contaminated blood in the 70s and 80s resulted in untold suffering and loss, and I reiterate again my department's apology and my apology to all those in the infected and/or affected community in Northern Ireland. Principal Deputy Speaker, they were failed by the system that should have been there to help them, and for that I am deeply sorry. So while I welcome the publication of the final report from the Infected Blood Inquiry, I also recognise that this is a poignant time for so many. The publication of the final report will be a watershed for victims, many of whom have given evidence to the inquiry. This will no doubt have been a traumatic experience, opening up old wounds and bringing back painful memories that they would prefer to forget. Those victims are to be applauded for their courage and dignity in coming forward to tell their stories, and it's with deep regret that we cannot undo the actions of the past. However, it is incumbent on us in government and across health service to ensure that this never happens again. So I'm grateful for Sir Brian Langstaff and his team's thorough work in producing what is a comprehensive report, which is published in 7 volumes, released yesterday, comprising of 2,500 pages and 12 recommendations, including 50 individual recommendations. The detailed recommendations of the final report are wide-ranging, cutting across a range of areas in my department, including quality, safety and improvement and workforce policy, as well as the culture and working practices of the wider executive, civil service and the health and social care system. So addressing these will require a collective effort and coordination of communications in collaboration with the infected and affected community. Principal Deputy Speaker, I want to carefully consider the details contained in the report and its recommendations published yesterday. Therefore, I am not yet in a position to respond in detail now. I am, however, committed to working with all my ministerial colleagues on a 4 nations basis, as well as across the Northern Ireland Executive, and taking action to respond, because I have no doubt that the work of the inquiry and its recommendations will help to inform and shape the delivery of health care in Northern Ireland and in the future.
Call Diane Dodds.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Principal Speaker. Sorry, I've probably got that all wrong again. Minister, I think most people will acknowledge that you say that these people were failed by the system and that you are sorry and that you hope that this would never happen again. But we have to take concrete steps to make sure it doesn't ever happen again. And one of those concrete steps is a statutory duty of candor. And I have asked you about this before in committee, and this has come up in the hyponatremia inquiry in relation to the case of Claire Roberts. So will you outline to the House where we are in relation to that statutory duty of candor, and can we expect to see legislation in relation to that in the near future?
And I thank the member for that point, because in regards to the duty of candor, I think in regards to Sir Brian's recommendations yesterday, there was also a duty of candor to be put in government and executives as well. So it actually was a quite ranging recommendation that I had. There are other recommendations in regards to the duty of candor is something that, as the member says, has been referred to in other inquiry reports. It's something the member is aware, and I think I mentioned it when I was in front of committee with her. We're looking at that overarching outcomes quality framework in regards about how we bring all the recommendations from all the inquiries that are currently outstanding, to make sure that we bring that all together. In regards, I think the recommendation that comes forward from Sir Brian's recommendations yesterday actually strengthens that position as to where we want to go, I think, as a department in regards to making sure we get this right. But I also think it's important now in regards to this. Before I actually left office, the last time I'd written to my counterparts in England, Scotland and Wales about bringing forward a duty of candor on a UK-wide basis to make sure that we were working to the same level, to the same standards across all four health services. But I think in Sir Brian's recommendations yesterday, he goes even that step forward in regards to that duty of candor for government as well, because what we saw in regards to the failings, especially in route infected blood, that it just wasn't that failing within the health service. There's also wider failing across government, which was acknowledged yesterday, and what was a very moving, I think, outworking where Sir Brian actually presented his report to many in the hall, that included those infected, those affected, and those who had lost as well.
Collis Kimmins.
And I thank the Minister for his answers so far, and I mean it's just to share in the comments of others, to send out our solidarity to all those families who have been impacted. And one of those people would be Nigel Hamilton, who's chair of Haemophilia NI. We met him recently with the Health Committee, who lost his brother Simon just in December. So this will be healing, but I think we've a long road to go. And Minister, you may or may not be able to answer this today, given what you've just said, but I know that the British government have said that they expect payments to be made in the next 90 days. Is there any indication of how that will look for people here in the north who are affected as much as anyone in Britain? And will that affect anyone already engaging with the compensation scheme?
You know, I thank the chair for her comments. I spoke with Nigel yesterday in regards to the event. Simon's voice was actually used in some of the video evidence that was given, not just to the inquiry but also presented yesterday in the findings of the report. And for the number of advocates, the number of champions that we have in Northern Ireland for this group, I think those two brothers have borne quite a heavy workload, along with others, Conor McGrath and Paul from Londonderry as well, in regards to the work that they've actually undertaken on this behalf, and many others. And I don't want to, by not naming anyone, actually leave that out. In regards to the announcement of payments that have been announced just in Westminster today, we weren't given sight in regards to that. The infected and the representation, or the representatives, actually met with myself and Minister Glenn back on the 3rd of May this year in regards to what the compensation package may look like. He didn't give us any detail at that stage, and we were listening to the statement as he made it today. I hope by the time I come back from delivering this question we'll actually have that in writing. But what I will be able to reassure the chair in regards to the previous payment of 100,000 that was made, we were able to process that through our business BSO in regards to, because there is a payment process there. I've already explored, and I think by direction, once I receive that money from Westminster, we can transfer it to BSO, and hopefully, and I intend, it's not even hopefully, we will make those payments in the same time frame as the rest of the UK, because that was one of the commitments that those who were infected when we met with Minister Glenn at the start of this month in regards to that there will be no postcode differential, and how those who are infected and unaffected will actually be treated or supported through this compensation package, because we believe, and I believe, that they have already been failed by the state, and I think to delay this because of where someone lives would be a further failure.
I call Donny Donnelly.
The Minister will be aware of many inquiries into patient safety failings here in Northern Ireland. We've already mentioned the hyponatremia inquiry, but we've also had the neurology inquiry. How are the findings and the recommendations of all these inquiries being knitted together and progressed here in Northern Ireland.
You know, the member makes a valid point in regards to those other inquiries and the recommendations as well. And as I said in the previous answer to Ms Dodds, it is that overarching quality framework. I think the committee may have presentation either scheduled or already had in regards to as to what that looks like as well. So he'll get the opportunity, I think, to have a look then as to how we bring those all together, rather than looking at individual recommendations from those individual queries, because unfortunately, Principal Deputy Speaker, there is a commonality across many of the recommendations. So to me, it makes sense that we bring those forwards in a single set of actions.
Call Alan Chambers.
I welcome the fact that the Minister was over in person in London yesterday at the inquiry publication, something that I suspect was appreciated by individuals and families affected locally. It was a scandal that should never have happened, and the tone and content of the report was rightly highlighted the multiple failings. Would the Minister join with me in once again calling on anyone who feels they may have been impacted to come forward and speak to health professionals? They suffered a great wrong, and it's only right that they receive the compensation they are entitled to. Thank you.
And the member does make a valid point, and I think that's something that, even coming out from this urgent oral today, or the statement today, in regards to those people who think they are either infected or have been affected, that they do come forward to their GP as well as to look into that additional support that may be out there, because the payments that are proposed today, that will be coming forward today, will be to those who are already on our schemes. So, Principal Deputy Speaker, I think it's important that those who feel they have been infected or affected actually take that step forward as well and make themselves known to their GPs and come forward through the health service.
Colin McGrath.
Deputy Speaker, and we remember all of those that were impacted by this scandal, and I think of my constituent Brian, who passed away a few weeks ago. Minister, meaningful counselling and specialist psychological support is of real importance to those that are impacted, and it's referenced in the report. Do you envisage making any of these services available to those that are impacted here?
The support that has been provided through the Belfast Trust, through the contaminated blood, that specific unit up there, it's actually something they've asked and something they have explored. If there is a further need, it's something I'm currently open to in regards to that. My understanding is available currently. Whether it needs to be expanded or looked at again, it's something I'll follow up on in regards to the member's comment.
I call Deborah Erskine.
Minister for his answers so far. I have listened obviously intently to what the Minister has said, and I think it's important that we do not throw some of these elements into process, like the duty of candour and one thing and another, that we actually act upon some of the issues that have been coming out in terms of some of these inquiries, and in particular the cultural issues that exist, and how does the Minister intend to resolve some of those cultural issues which are deeply embedded, particularly in Northern Ireland, in the small healthcare system that we have?
And again, I think the member for her point, you know, the idea of culture we have, you know, I think looking at the number of the inquiries that we have had, you know, that culture is something that needs challenge. But again, I will refer to, you know, Sir Brian's comments yesterday, and it was a very powerful experience to hear him going through his rationale, his reasons, and especially to identify those people who have been failed by the system, but also what governments need to do, not just the Westminster government, but also here in regards to Northern Ireland. So that duty of candor that he talked about in regards to how governments actually take on that duty of candor as well, and how they address their culture as well, I think is something that all devolved assemblies, but also Westminster, will need to look at as well as we work our way through these recommendations, to make sure, and again, I don't say this lightly, Principal Deputy Speaker, to make sure that we can provide that reassurance of anyone who looks to government, anyone who looks to our health service in Northern Ireland, can be reassured of the advice, the guidance and the support they're being given is something that they can trust and believe in.
Call Paul Bradshaw.
Speaker, and just following on from that point, Minister, I would like to concur with the good wishes to those campaigners over the years. But Minister, that point around assurance, there will be people who engage with the Northern Ireland Blood Transfusion Service. There will be those people who may be going in for an operation, etc. What reassurance can you give that this sort of thing would not happen today?
I think, as anyone who listened to Sir Brian's comments yesterday in regards to where the feelings were, was that British government didn't actually act quick enough in regards to the heat treatment of blood products, how we look to not pulling those plasma donations as well, and rather than having that wider complement as well. So from what I took from his report yesterday, I think there's a belief now that our blood transfusion services and that supply is safe in regards to the investment that we've made in blood transfusion service here in Northern Ireland. And I do hope, Principal Deputy Speaker, that no one takes away from this that either receiving a blood transfusion in Northern Ireland or actually going forward for an operation, that these sort of risks still maintain because of the quality standards that we have now put in, also not just in those who come forward and donate blood, but also the treatment of it prior to being given in donations or in transfusions for those who currently need it.
Call Sinead McLaughlin.
I would just like to commend the work of Brian Langstaff, the chair of the inquiry. He has done a tremendous job. He has gathered evidence over the past 6 years and presented a very thorough report and recommendations, and has been a real champion of the victims of this blood scandal. In relation to the compensation, Minister, will there be a right of appeal against the level of reward for individuals?
And again, I thank the member. The information, as I say, Principal Deputy Speaker, is not. We didn't have any notification as the statement that was being made, because I think rightly the Minister wanted the families to be the first to hear as well. So from what I have at this minute in time, there's an early action for an interim payment of £210,000 to those who have been infected with HIV and or hepatitis C, and who are registered to the financial, or currently registered to the financial support schemes. In regards to the range of compensations awards, what I'm aware is going to be across 5 heads of loss, and they will be available to the new compensation scheme, which was actually recommended by Sir Brian in a second report, that being injury impact award, a social impact award, an autonomy award, care award, and a financial loss award. At this minute in time, I'm unaware of the exact details of delivery or if there's going to be a appeal, but as soon as I'm aware, I'll definitely make sure it's circulated to all members of the House.
Call Jerry Carroll.
I want to offer my solidarity to all the victims as well. Minister, one thing clear from the inquiry is that senior civil servants in Britain destroyed documents relating to patients and former patients to cover their tracks in the scandal. Can he confirm, does he know of any patient records that were cancelled or destroyed in Britain relating to patients here, or any documents that were destroyed here relating to former patients here?
Principal Deputy Speaker, I don't have that detail.
If members just take their ease until we change the top table. Thank you.
Members, we resume our debate on veterinary